Call the meeting to order for Wicomico County Council work session for a budget session for April 30th, 2025.
Pamela Lynn, Finance Director.
Tony Rudy, Airport Director.
Thank you very much.
So like yesterday, I'm going to give a brief overview of the airport and then open it up for council questions. There are a couple changes on the Exhibit E being requested. One of them is for one of the ARF positions to be named lieutenant. So we're at one of the ones that we currently have to be named lieutenant as the supervisor of that area instead of, and then.
Which department is this? Is this
Airport? Airport. And then we are looking to add another ARF position, but that one is one that we're looking to get grant funded by a SAFER grant from the federal government, right?
Yes.
And as such, it is 100% funded in the budget for grant funds. So if we do not get awarded the grant, and at this moment the grant opportunity is not yet open, we're still following as to when it will open. So it's listed in the budget with grant revenue, and it's listed in the budget with expense for the position. If we don't get the position won't be hired. And
Which one was that? What position?
that's the one that's called Airport Ops Tech Firefighter, position number 674. So that is intended to be grant funded.
If it's a new one, I'm confused. Why does it say the increase amount? Is that just the increase amount over?
No, that's the one above it. The next one down, 674, Airport Facilities Maintenance Tech, that we're changing to the Airport Ops Tech and Firefighter. It says reactivate new position, budget to midpoint. That is the one that we're looking to get grant funded. And then the Airport Trusted Agent, we're looking to upgrade the grade on that. We have taken that through Bolton based on additional requirements done by the FAA. This job will require additional security duties and additional duties to maintain the airport, and as such, we're requesting the position be upgraded. On the operating side of things.
Can I ask you a question on that again?
Yep.
Thanks. So the one that you said you're waiting for the funding on, is that 015, 674, or 967?
It's 674.
674, which is, okay, so the old airport ops tech and firefighter is being changed to the position of an ARF lieutenant?
Yes, we're putting kind of ranks in there so that we have a supervisory level than just the all baseline people. So we're going to have a lieutenant in there, and so we're upgrading a position that we currently have.
So, okay, all right.
And then we want to add another employee in ARF, but we only want to add it if we receive the grant. Due to expanded hours by Piedmont and the potential of another airline, the amount of coverage that we need out there is growing, and as such, we need additional employees, but we believe that we should be able to get this grant funded. It would be a 3-year grant, and then it would become our responsibility. But it's not like we're hoping that, you know, we continue to grow the airfield and thus continue to need the number of people that we have out there.
They're going to allow us to use those firefighters for anywhere else in the county. I mean, it does have to be isolated to the.
They have to be able to respond within a specific amount of time.
Yeah.
And so they can't be off doing a call
Yeah.
at, airport in Snow Hill Road. They need to be able to be at the airport during the times we have commercial flight operations.
Are they allowed to do any other jobs besides?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
and-
Yeah. There are other jobs. So they're there, in the evening hours when they need to be. So we used to have a contract that did this, but the problem with the contract, they only did that. So there's a lot of downtime. So with our people, we could utilize them to do other things that, in the off hours when the other people weren't there. And the good news is the funds for this is all covered by the airlines. There is a landing fee that covers for ARF services.
And so the advantage to having the one more will make scheduling a little easier and have the availability of coverage for all the periods of time that we need it. But their job descriptions do have additional duties in them, not just other duties as assigned. It is literally other duties listed in the job description that they can be called to do in a standard workday. I believe one of the other ones that we have looked at, I don't know if you've transitioned to that, but another one of the ones that we've looked at is they're one of the last ones there when our last commercial flight comes in. So they help make sure the facility is shut down appropriately.
Yeah, we used to rely on the cleaners from Central to lock up the building, which wasn't the most ideal thing. So now, since they have to be there for the last flight and, 15 minutes after, they go to the terminal after that, comes in, make sure everyone's cleared out and secure the facility overnight.
So, we have our own employee versus a contracted employee shutting down our facility at the end of the evening.
Okay.
So again, that's another duty as assigned, but it means that we are utilizing those people for more than just sitting there hoping nothing comes in.
I got you.
May I move on to operating expenses? We have additional costs associated with snow removal. This past year was a heavy snow removal where you anticipate, and then life happens that it doesn't happen, but we do have to anticipate having the availability of all of the equipment and all of the product available for that.
The de-icing chemical, it's rather expensive stuff. You can't use just road salt because of the corrosion. So the de-icing material we use it's about $1 a pound, and to do one treatment, we use about 4,000 pounds. So with the snow we've had this year, we use it sparingly, but there are times where to keep the airfield open, to keep the flights going, you do have to use that, and we have to keep a certain amount stocked up so we don't run short and have to close the airport.
The electric is going up primarily due to the fact that we're going to have the new ARF building up and running, and thus it is a bigger facility. It will draw more electric. Yes, it will be a energy efficient building, but still it is another facility.
And also, from my understanding, when we had some previous conversations, the state has some different regulations that can drive up electric costs with the utilities building. I think they were allowed to build new infrastructure and bill back to the consumer to cover those costs as well. So we're just trying to take a realistic approach, looking at all of that, and
we're hopeful by the end of 2026 we can start seeing some of the savings associated with having the solar field. But until we see those savings, we need to budget for having the actual cost that we have. I forgot to mention yesterday, it was actually it's a big number in certain departments. General Services was one of them. This department as well. We have had a lease with a company called ESG for, it goes back years. It goes back to my time when I was with the city of Salisbury. We started that process when I was with them. It was a combined effort between the city of Salisbury and Wicomico County to contract with this company called ESG to do energy upgrades, and we paid for those through a leased payment every year. And 2025 was our last year. We had it verbally confirmed.
Good.
We had it confirmed in writing, and thus we are not budgeting it in a lot of departments. So if you see ESG lease in there and now zero, it is a purposeful zero because of the fact that that has finally been paid off.
Good.
So.
Were they in the part of the library as well?
Yes, that's part of the deduction. When we get to the library, the request from the library, we don't actually match their request by the amount of the ESG lease because we always paid them that amount for that. And so we deducted that from their total request because of. So again, I think library, civic center, general services, airport, corrections, I'm trying to think if there are any other ones, but those are the ones off the top of my head that I can remember had a ESG lease dollar amount in them. So again, if you see that 0, it is purposeful. It is not a missed number. It is not a missed number that our vehicle expenses other went down from a budget of $51,000 to 0 because that was buying new our foam in fiscal '25, and thus we don't need to buy that again in fiscal '26. Professional services. There's some specific, the reason for the increase is we are going to have some additional contracts in professional services this year. There's not one big one, there's about 7 different ones that we have that are impacting that number. There's money going to our standard company that helps us in all of our consulting, which is Delta. We've got general contracts that we put out with GMB and Fisher to help, and so we have a number in there. We believe that we're going to be putting out a rental car RFP, and thus we're going to need to contract with a company to help us write that because we don't have the expertise to write an RFP to request rental companies. So that is adding up to the reason for the increase in professional services. LEO coverage is increased due to increased expected number of flights. Heavy equipment is increased due to some specific purchases. There's a boom attachment, a boom lift, some snow equipment that we're looking at, a floor scrubber, and a new mower for out on the property. And that adds up to the $210,000 listed under heavy equipment, going from the $46,000 up to the $210,000. Otherwise, most of the other budget increases are due to run rate and current growth in cost. So any questions that I can answer for you?
Is there going to be any increase in revenue over what we've had as far as the fuel field goes? The new fuel field, new lease and...
The new fuel farm? Yes, we'll see revenue there because we'll be leasing that facility to the new FPO that's coming in.
Is that an increase over what we were leasing?
We were leasing the land to Bayland Aviation for their fuel farm. Because we own the fuel farm now, we'll be getting money in for that. We've also seen our parking revenues have increased as our passenger numbers have increased, and with the new airline coming in, we'll see that going up as well, I'm sure.
We get flowage fees, like from how much fuel sold, part of that too?
Yes, part of it is the flowage fees, separate from the leasing the actual facility.
We sell fuel to Piedmont, or do they fuel somewhere else and come in?
No, they buy a lot of fuel, so they've got an agreement with Bayland right now, and the way it works, from my understanding, is Piedmont actually buys the fuel and puts it in the tank, and then Bayland basically charges them a service fee to flow it into their aircraft. And that a lot of airlines work it that way because they buy fuel in such large volumes as compared to Bayland. They'll get the basic fuel cheaper, but they still need someone to flow it.
On the capital side, there's one change. The state put $1.5 million in their budget to build a new hangar for the mechanic school, and thus that is that is in here under
And that's just for the
state grant.
design portion and site prep work. So it's not for the actual construction of the hangar.
Where will that hangar be, Tony?
We're looking over by Maryland State Police over on the other side of the airport.
Okay. And so that's all aside from what I call the Hogan money that's allowed us to build the school to begin with, right?
Yes, yes.
Because I think
Yeah,
we've pretty much used up that 3.3, right?
exactly. So this would be for a whole new facility.
Okay.
To be able to, have a proper standalone facility. Piedmont right now is subletting that hangar for this to happen, which is great. But we're looking at a more permanent facility and made a presentation to the state, and they're willing to fund at least the design and site prep now, and we're shooting for
Would you be moving the school over there? Or just be an addition to it?
yeah.
Yes, we would move the school.
You're going to move the school over there?
Yes. And so it would free up the space on this side
Right.
of the facility to do potential future renovations.
Okay. A question for airport, but could be for everybody, really. How are we with because I know the airport depends on a lot of federal grants, and you had this question a million times. Are we at a place where we're feeling comfortable as far as from the federal grant level and the state grant level as well?
So
With a lot of our projects, we're really seeing this.
we have, in any instances where we have had concerns, we've put pauses, but there have been limited things that we've had to actually pause.
Airport's good. I know we got okay with the new airlines. Is it okay to say who the new airlines is now? I can't remember.
We're going to make an announcement on the 7th.
Hold on, just a little bit longer,
4 or 5 different times already.
a little bit longer.
So you're
But-
announcing it on the 7th?
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, we have been successful in making sure the grants that are significant dollars and significant impact are continuing to flow to us associated with federal grants. And then other grants we have verified with the state to make sure that they are actually state fully funded grant, and thus they may, sometimes you wonder about the grant as whether or not it's a pass-through from the federal to the state and state to us. Before we have signed contracts, I have been the person who has gone, can you verify with the state that this money is coming wholly from the state? And made the state put it in writing so that we make sure we're as protected as we can be in this day and age.
Good.
I have a question. Under the professional services, did you state that you didn't have anybody qualified to do an RFP?
To do an RFP for a very specific task of getting rental car companies into our facility. And so, I have never written an RFP to do rental car company. Tony, I don't think has.
We did one a few years back, and I've since I went to a small rental car conference and gained a lot of information and talked to a lot of people that have done these, and I came to the conclusion where we need someone that does this type of thing because it's so specialized, and we're trying to we need our contracts with the rental car companies have long expired, so we're just continuing on with the old agreement, but the industry standards have gone up quite a bit, and I really need someone to look at this, to really scrutinize what we're doing, and it's someone that does it at other airports around the country, so we're on a level playing field, and we're not getting a bad
And
proposal.
then once you get the RFP, the new RFP, you can use probably that without paying someone.
So when the new RFP goes out, we will pay a company to help us write it, because if we asked if we asked a rental car company to help us write it, they would not be allowed to then bid on it. That's our county rules, and that's what happens with a lot of these specialized RFPs. We may not have all of the specialized knowledge. Sometimes we need to go outside to hire a company. I believe we just came to you guys for one, or we're doing one with 3+1 to help us write an RFP for our banking services. Again, Charles and I have a lot of knowledge, but we have not written a banking RFP. And so having an industry expert help us write one means that we're getting the right information into that so that the people are responding, and we as the county are getting the best bids that we can possibly get that would protect us. And potentially bring the biggest amount of revenue.
I'm just saying, simply saying that if you get this done professionally, and you had to do another RFP, could you just look at that RFP and
Well, it depends on how many.
outline?
Yeah, I mean, so again, when we're doing an RFP, most likely, we're not looking for one service provider out there for rental cars. So we could end up with more than one, and we could then, hopefully, if the term is appropriate in that contract, 5 years down the road, 6 years down the road, whatever the term we end up writing, if the industry hasn't changed significantly, we might be able to just update that RFP and/or at a much lower cost, update the RFP because we would have an original document that is in a good place.
Hopefully I wasn't paying attention on some of this. Under professional services, you have 237,000.
Yes.
I'm curious as to maybe what that might be.
That's, that includes the RFP, that includes our amount to Delta, the company that we utilize to help us with a lot of our negotiations and a lot of our contracts. We have an amount in there for both GMB and Fisher to help us if something comes up. We don't have anything specific, but we have a dollar amount in there for that. And then some smaller amounts to look at potential air service development, again, to continue to expand our air service out there.
Tony,
And another one for for a local surveyor, we have to update our re-subdivision plat, so he's
could
got
you
a
do me a
proposal.
favor and just get the council a list of what changed? Because I know in 25 it was 165,000, and it would be good if
Actually-
you could just give us a list of what it was that was added and the cost. Can you do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things I've had to push off this year because we just didn't have the money for it, so that's another reason why it's bumped up, so we can get you that list.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And then you have capital lease vehicle, but that's not necessarily cars per se, I'm assuming. I don't know. I'd have to.
No, that is the cars.
That is the cars, okay.
That is the
That's
cars
good.
for
Yeah,
them.
I didn't cross-reference that, but,
Yeah, that is, so again, as
I get it.
we stated, we separately budget the leases in the separate funds. Since this is a separate fund from the general fund, they get their dollar amount separately.
on the corporate hangar rentals, that's increasing, right? It looks like is that due to an increase in rental charges, or is that additional rentals? It went from 93,796 to 126,444.
93 to, what did it go up to?
I'm not seeing, I'm missing it, I can't see it. Oh,
Corporate
there, it
hangar,
is.
93
126.
To 126. And I'm trying to remember, I think we have, we've got some of the leases that are coming due, so we're going to see a slight increase in revenue for those leases.
So that is the leases out, for the other hangars that we have, and as those leases, we're looking at increasing the amount that we're charging due to market conditions.
Market conditions, and I also know, like, Maryland State Police, they had a long-term lease with the airport for their facility. This goes back like 20 years, that lease has expired, so we're negotiating with them. So whereas they paid, basically they took over, they paid the county off a loan that the county had for the hangar, which paid for basically their lease agreement for 20 years, but now we'll be collecting revenue from that facility because that's all paid off and
Okay.
leases up.
And there's a substantial increase in your terminal parking, which is about a 30% increase, or actually, yeah, it's
Yeah.
about a 50% increase.
That we're looking at, our passenger numbers have been doing really well, and then with the new airline, we factored that in with those additional passengers coming in.
Well, I had. Jeff?
Yeah. Can we go back to these three positions?
Yes.
Looks like we're taking an airport ops tech and firefighter and converting it to an ARF lieutenant. And we're taking the airport facilities maintenance tech and converting it to the same position that we just converted to the ARF lieutenant. Why wouldn't we keep that position the same?
Because it's a position that's currently filled.
Mm-hmm.
And so we attempt to keep the position numbers static with the position, with a person who is in a position that we are looking at doing the promotion for. So instead of changing the position number of the person, we're changing the title of the position number and then putting in the other one. And again, the other one will only get activated if we get the grant. So having it be a brand-new number that isn't currently filled makes it a whole lot cleaner for finance and payroll to keep track of it, to say, no, sorry, Tony, you can't hire that one at this moment because we don't have the grant paperwork yet. Once we have the grant paperwork, then I can say, yay, Tony, you can go hire that position now.
The potential grant-funded position, is that the one that the landing fees are going to help pay for?
No, at least, well, for the 3 years, if we get the grant will cover that. But then after that, the landing fees will.
If we get the new airline, which sounds like we will, did we waive the landing fees on that airline?
So that's for 2 years, up to
For 2
2
years,
years. So,
okay.
So if we get the grant, that'll cover at least a year beyond that.
That's what I was kind of wondering with it. When any of the costs from the new airline or from the FPO, I didn't really see that in here. And I didn't know if we were anticipating costs in the fiscal year 26.
Costs for the new airline or?
Yeah, associated, like as Jeff suggested, the marketing and advertising, we were planning to do whether
Yep, so that's.
fall into 26.
That's in 25.
I understand. I didn't know if any of that was going to fall into 26 or whether any of the FPO was planning to be in fiscal year 26 as well.
There shouldn't be any FBO expenses that we have. I mean, it's really revenue we're bringing in from them.
All right. Any, anybody? No? Yes, Laura.
For Tony, for your ARF training, for actual fiscal year '24, it looks like the ARF training was $368,000. But for this fiscal year '26, you're only asking for $13,000.
That's just for recurrent training for the current people and initial training for an extra person.
So in fiscal year '24, it was the initial training, and
Yeah.
then '26 is the reoccurring training, and that's why it's so much less? Okay, all right.
That's when we took the people on, so we had to train all of them from scratch.
And then Pam, back to your statement about these position numbers being retitled. When we retitle a position number, are we in fact abolishing the current title?
No, that title then still exists in our pay and classification plan. We're just taking a position that we already have and retitling it, but we're not eliminating the possibility that that title could be used again somewhere else.
So what you're saying is that multiple positions can have the same position number?
No, multiple position numbers can have the same title. Position numbers are, for the most part, except for in a part-time situation where we have a lot of people doing the same job, where we give them all the same position number because they're only working ad hoc. Most positions, that's the reason why, like, we come to you and say, we want to do an overfill because we have somebody retiring and we want to do a training, and so we're asking for a short period of time, this position number to have more than one person in it. So a position number, for the most part, is one title, one person at a time. A title does not, the titles are not equivalent with specific position numbers. We could start over again and renumber everything and give everybody a new position number, but our titles would stay the same that's in our pay and classification plan.
So but what I'm saying, though, in your system, for example, on the very first one, let's see, position number 015, It's currently the airport ops tech and firefighter. You wanted to make it the ARF lieutenant. But what you're saying is that this airport ops will still have that position number. It will not, so.
So we have other ARF positions, so if you go back to the airports list, on page, so on page 11 of Exhibit F, we list all the airport positions. You will notice that there is another airport ops tech firefighter. That's position number 000964. So again, we've got more than one person with that title, but they're two different position numbers. So the position number that's highlighted in blue is the one that we would like to change to be an ARF lieutenant. The position number 100674 isn't on the list of Exhibit F because it's not a position that's currently filled or one that is currently authorized to be filled. And thus, we're asking for that one to be added to the list. And then position number 967 is one that we're looking to upgrade the grade, but again, it's just going to say that same position number, but you will notice we have 3 airport ops tech firefighters currently, and they all have different position numbers. We have 1015, 964, and 965.
Okay, so for this particular ops firefighter, it's 015.
Yes.
And then, once it gets replaced with this lieutenant, it's still in the system, though.
It's still in the system as 015, and then this line would now say lieutenant, ARF lieutenant.
So you can have multiple titles with the same position number.
No. The title would now go away.
But you said it didn't get abolished.
The title would go away for that position number. That position number would now be renamed ARF lieutenant. So we would have 2 still being ARF, or ops tech firefighters, 964 and 965. 1015 would no longer be called airport ops tech and firefighter. It would now be called ARF lieutenant.
But the history is what I'm saying.
It would still, but I can't fill it as an ARF as a airport ops tech anymore because council has now told me it is an ARF lieutenant position.
I'm not thinking just airport, I'm thinking across the board.
Well, but history, so whoever held the position before, their title is in the system. But once council makes that change, that title changes for the perspective going forward. For that period of time going forward, it is now named this.
So
I don't lose history. I don't have the ability to call it anymore if council adopts this, an airport ops. I have to call position 1015 an ARF lieutenant going forward.
understood.
Okay?
Questions? Tony, you have any more comments? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Public Works, Roads, Solid Waste Engineering.
So which one would council like to start with? Public Works, Roads, or Solid Waste?
We'll start with Public Works Engineer. I have Public Works Engineering all as one.
Okay, sure. Department number 24. So in that, there is actually very little
Could you
change.
do me a favor?
Oh, sorry.
Introductions, thank you.
Mustafa Klikarslan, Director of Public Works.
Good afternoon, Mike Swayze, Deputy Director of Public Works.
Heather Langford, Manager Engineer.
Jessica Hunter, Supervisor of Accounting, Solid Waste.
So On the Public Works side of things, there's actually very little changes. You will notice that in total, actually, it is going down, and that is primarily being driven by the fact that our consulting services number is going from 250 to 150, and that is primarily due to the fact that we will now have a PE on staff and not have to contract those services out. So hiring of a Public Works Director with a PE has saved in the budget $100,000.
There you go.
So that is a savings. This department in and of itself, there's one position request for this department. It is to make, I'm trying to find it. It's actually not on Exhibit E. It's just to bring a person, it is on the Exhibit F for Public Works. It is to bring a person's salary up to more to market for what they are doing. Otherwise, again, in total, we're bringing the Public Works Department 24 down.
Questions?
So within the engineering budget, we also have $80,000 amount that we will use for the dredging maintenance of the Sharps Point. Okay.
So if there's other questions that you have.
Let him talk.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Go ahead.
sir. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that was the second biggest item, 80,000 within the engineering budget, and we will just use it toward the Sharps Point dredging, location maintenance, and some of the other stuff that the county will need to take on responsibility. Yeah. Those are two biggest items.
Questions from, questions? The Sharps Point Wetland Mitigation Project, 4.1 million, correct?
We have it in the budget at $7.5 million for fiscal '26.
Understood, but I thought the Sharps Point Wetland Mitigation was the property that was next to the cells that we now have filled with spoils, and the 4.1 million was originally what was budgeted for the location of the property next to it, which we were, I think, too late in mitigation,
Yes.
so we had to abandon it and come up with the 7.2 to move the spoils from the current site.
Correct. So for the dredging portion, that 2.3 million that we came to recently, that was for the initial 100,000 on top of what we're going to be moving forward with internally, trying to remediate the rest of it. Now, we are in the midst of finalizing and starting different types of mitigation. I just spoke to a company about the forest mitigation portion, the wetlands. There are some pristine wetlands in there, so a lot of that is on that particular lot. So between the two funds, I think we
I guess the
we
real
can look
question,
at-
as we are now going to be spending the exorbitant amount of money to 7.2 to move the spoils out, are we at the same time still going to be doing the mitigation or remediation for this separate piece of?
Yes, because at some point, we've come to the conclusion that we realize that this is never ending. Obviously, it's dredge, depending on which cycle we're on which portion of the river. So, it does seem like an absorbent, a large amount. However, I'm getting emails right now going back to Deal Island where they're starting again. So we're not only dealing with Sharps Point, I'm now dealing with Deal Island as well. And then if we're looking at the adjacent site, it allows us to bump in or grow that particular site and create more cells while we're moving along with the other portions of the dredging on the river. So it's a ongoing, investigation.
The Wicomico River dredging support, which we were doing at $350,000 a year, that's continuing on now. So I guess my question is, we are going to be using those funds. Are those going to be helping to offset the 4.1 million on this project? Is it going to, how does that come into play now that we've come up with 7.2 on the spoils and 4.1 on the remediation? Where does this 350 go? Because that originally I thought was supposed to be for what we're spending the 7.2 on.
It will be allocated, sorry, it will be allocated in.
Go ahead, Director, I'm sorry.
Okay, so right now, the plan is that the U.S. Army Corps will dredge about 400,000 cubic yard by fiscal year 2026. So we are just getting the material from Sharps Point to give them some room for that 400,000 cubic yards. So which means that if we just relocate that material from Sharps Point this year until next year, once they start, that location will be ready for the 26 dredging, but it will be full by end of that dredging as well. So that wetland mitigation is a necessary step that we need to just follow, because it will not, this year's relocating material will not resolve the issue moving forward. It will just be a temporary solution, and next year it will be full again. So that portion, I think, is related to this wetland mitigation, which is just next to the existing property. So it can be work as a new storage yard.
So the $350,000, could we reduce or potentially eliminate that number in fiscal '26 alone? Because again, when we talked about the original $3.2 million that we are doing, 2.3, 3.2?
2.3.
2.3, sorry, I had them backwards. Anyways, when we talked about that number, yes, we have set aside money, but we realize that we need to be doing a longer range plan as to what is the longer range plan for this, and what is the longer range number that we need to be setting aside on an annual basis. The $7.5 million is the one to help us then get to the next step to get rid of the additional 300,000 cubic yards that the Army Corps wants us to do to get to a total of 400,000 cubic yards. Could that $350,000 potentially be paused for fiscal 2026 as we come up with what that new number is? Yeah, but does it make sense to continue to be putting it in there so that we keep reminding ourselves that there's money there and we're taking it out of fund balance? It is not an operating expense. So again, if we decide to eliminate that $350,000, then we're eliminating $350,000 of revenue. It's not a savings to the bottom line because we're taking it from fund balance, and you don't want to pay an operating expense from a fund balance amount. This is literally coming from fund balance, which I believe I did give council in the budget packet an explanation as to how these numbers reconcile associated with the fund balance. So could it be paused? Yes. Do I recommend it be paused? No. And even if we do pause it, all it does is reduce revenue, reduce expense.
Well, that's not really true. If, you know, that certainly wouldn't go away. We'd be putting in reserves.
It would stay in fund.
A lot of people are asking right now, well, what about the 350 over the last 7 years?
Well, but it's not,
I'm saying, they're asking that question as in the fact that when things are budgeted, they're supposed to be budgeted specifically as line items for specific purposes. We know exactly what the 7.2 is now. We know what the 4.3, but the 350 is sort of like out there. It just says Wicomico dredging.
So we put it in a project number, and we set it aside for the project of Wicomico dredging. So as we hire people, as we do stuff, as we...
Let me, if I can chime in on something. Again, just going back to, I know we have the 7.2, million in there. The 350, I think for us, especially like for me looking at it, I'm already getting contacts about the next stages of, hundreds of thousands of plugs that are going to be going into Deal Island. We'll probably have flyovers. We'll likely have spraying for the plants down there, and that's sort of what we've been using on an estimated range, but then you have to also consider any of the unknown factors that come in, especially with with the pristine wetlands, with, trucking efforts. So again, it's not just, I think we're super hyper-focused on Sharps Point because that's the one we're on right now trying to push for, especially with the 7.2. So that 350 allows us to continue with the 5-year plan that we're looking at with Army Corps and like I said, Deal Island. So
And I appreciate that. And it is, I know it is explained in the CIP as to it, it's working in cooperation with the Corps. But when we got hit with the 7.2 and we got hit with the other 4.2, everybody said, well, what were we doing all along with the 350? Were we really making plans with the Army Corps for the 350? Or if we were, would we have been caught into this real bind that we're in now, with these expenses that we're doing now, mitigation problems we're having now? What were we doing with $350,000 over the last 7 years, if not planning, better planning for the mitigation?
Well, as we
And the
stated
spoil sites.
as we stated in the last meeting, hindsight, and we did not have a public works director for most of those 7 years. It is, this ball did get dropped. And
No, and I understand that, and that's why we didn't really get into a big back and forth, Pam, but my question really is how do you think that we justified that there was a good use of that $350,000 over the last 7 years?
But it is not gone. We haven't, that money still sits there available to us.
Well, where is it? Because I asked that question, didn't get a real
It
straight
sits in
answer.
a capital project fund.
And where would that be in?
Well, again,
Here.
once you budget it, we move it to the capital project fund. There is in the audit, you have a column that says capital, and it's in there.
Save me the trouble, and just, if you could send me something that says, this is where all the 350s went for 7 years, that'd be great, and I wouldn't have to ask.
I can
dumb
get you the
questions.
account number and
I get it.
how much is still in that.
I get it. This is day-to-day with you, Pam. It's not day-to-day with us, so we're a
Yep.
little easier to confuse here.
Also, the 2.3 million just covers the first 100,000 cubic yard. And within the next 2-3 weeks, we are just planning to start hauling some material from the Sharps Point to the landfill by using our own roast division workforce and equipment. So also we can just, the first phase will be about 6,000 to 7,000 cubic yards that we will just also see the actual cost, and if we plan for a bulk operation of that hauling, but it will be the first thing that we will utilize our own workforce and see how it goes.
Good.
So maybe we can just use that money to that operation as well.
I will
Okay.
get you the dollar amount that remains in that account.
Yep, thank you very much. Joe?
I guess two things. One has nothing to do with budget, but I have a question. But I thought Heather just said that you were using some of this money.
We've used some of it. It is
But
not.
you were saying it's all been set aside.
Yeah, but
Some.
we use it, so, again, it's set aside in a project number. When we have specific needs to spend it, we spend it out of that project
So
number.
it's not all there.
No, it has been
You
spent.
said a while ago it was all there. I'm sorry. You did.
If I did, I apologize.
Okay, that's
But it all originally went there,
Okay.
and as such, it has been spent out of that account.
Okay, all right.
it's requested when I need an allocation.
Yes,
Okay,
and
that's
they
fine.
spend it, like, they
Just
spend it
getting-
out of that
I was
account.
getting mixed messages there.
I apologize.
I read somewhere where there's going to be 30,000 truckloads of dirt moved from this site. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
It's an estimate.
So that's
It's an estimate.
60,000 passes by somebody's house
Correct.
on that route. Has that route been laid out?
Yes.
And has people been notified that
Yes.
lives along that route?
There are
Everybody that lives along that route's been
easements.
notified?
There, not yet, because we have not even finalized the contract. We're waiting on one final thing. We do have easements within there. I
What?
believe easements, there are easements that the homeowners and the lot owners have allowed for piping and other things
okay.
work that we have to do. So we will
I'm
definitely get
talking about the road, I'm talking about the trucks, not the running the pipes out. I'm not talking about that.
Sure,
I'm talking about
so-
the trucks traveling up and down the road.
There was actually a map, I guess you want to call it, within the bid documents that was laid out. There's a laydown area that's been highlighted. It's 1.7 miles away,
1.7
if
miles,
that.
okay.
So it's actually right at our Allen facility.
Is it all- But I thought it was going.
No,
to
that
different
covers
places.
only the first phase one, and it's about 8,000 truck loads, which means 16,000 trips for the trucks. And that covers for just phase one. And as Heather said, it's just 1.7 miles. But for the remaining 300,000 cubic yard, we will just hold that material just to the sites next to the landfill. And the total distance is about 6.8 miles right now. So we just did that study with Mike and Ian last week. So there is an option. Maybe we can just increase that distance to 11 miles, which will cost us about $100,000 in the total fuel consumption. But we will use which route, Mike?
Not the route that involves residential passing by.
Yeah.
We're in part using the bypass and the artery choices where we can, so that we don't put the wear and tear on the local roads and
Right.
hit residential.
That
And
was
this-
my next question about the conditions of the road and if he planned.
And this will be
That's a lot,
about,
that's a lot of trucks that
yeah.
these roads
It is in
aren't
our
used to
specifications
handling.
too, yeah.
And I know the council's going to start getting calls when it starts
Yeah,
happening.
we already,
Could you provide us with those maps of the roadways that you're going to use?
sure, we can.
Yeah.
And the phase two is the biggest part. It will be about 25,000 truckloads. And with the new distance about 11 miles, in fact, the time duration is similar, maybe 2-3 minutes per truck trip. But there will be an additional, maybe through our estimation, $100,000 in the fuel consumption. So, yeah, we are just
What's
reviewing
that?
that in
What,
detail.
is it diesel?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So if the price of fuel
But
goes
that
down a little
will,
bit,
yeah, reduce the complaints, the amount of complaints drastically. That's our estimation.
For phase one, though, for your concern of the households being alerted, we definitely will do that. There's not many at all that they'll be passing. And it will be at the Allen location, so signage will be up. We'll let that be known. And additionally, within the bid, the concerns of the trucks, any deterioration of the roadways, it is on the contractor to repair that.
Nothing to do with the budget, really, but
Yeah, that's fine.
just
Nope.
for information.
Trying to stay on budget. We have been, a lot of the budget has referenced Fruitland Primary School, how a lot of projects have been canceled. Some of those are roads projects. Are we planning to recover any of that, recognizing the fact that we're no longer doing the forward funding with the state of Maryland?
So the forward funding is just postponed. It is not off the books. So the forward funding is now in '27, not in '26. So the impact to us may be smaller. So hopefully next year when we're doing the CIP, we have the ability to have a better number as to what is the remaining amount that we will have to forward fund. And thus, we will be able to do a better estimate. But not having to do the forward funding this year allowed us to, add the 7.5 million, or add the money for the dredging, because we have the money available. So yes, we did postpone some projects when we originally submitted the CIP. We are still looking at keeping those postponed at the moment in the years that we postpone them to, and hopefully next year when we have better numbers then for Fruitland Primary, we'll be able to finalize where some of those projects can fall out.
That would be good to know, and I think, I'm not going to continue on with a lot of questions here. I think we need a work session for the water and sewer master plan. I don't want to question the 850 now and the 350 or 250 every other year, but we're doing 850 this year. I'd like to maybe have a work session on exactly where we're going with that.
Yeah, and that, again, that is the ability to, when something arises, allow us to move forward with funding that we might already have in place.
Understand?
I have a quick question.
Yes, Shane?
The simple, nothing technical, really hard. The computer software, the new expense, what is that?
So a lot of it, go ahead.
Engineering?
Are you talking in engineering still?
Yeah, I guess we're.
So, yeah, so what happens every year, those numbers are primarily provided by IT for every department. So IT keeps track of how old everybody's computer is and how old everybody's laptop is and how old everybody's PC is. And so they tell us, you need X, Y, and Z dollar amount to purchase the new computer or new laptop and to purchase the upgraded software that goes on that new laptop. So that number is going to fluctuate significantly year over year, department by department, because, you know, maybe finance had 10 computers replaced last year, and this year nothing has aged out. Maybe this year it looks like the number has gone up for Public Works. Well, that's primarily due to, I'm sure, the fact that they have some aging out computers that IT has told us that we need to replace.
So it would be for computers?
Also,
Well,
I think
there's
AutoCAD,
also-
right, Heather? I see an AutoCAD PO.
There is AutoCAD and
Yeah.
HydroCAD. However, for MS4 purposes, a lot of the requirements that they're asking for are to be in GIS. So one of the employees would need an outdoor tablet that would need, you know, strong Wi-Fi connection so that they can literally be on site while they're out there and have the coordinates, have the information, be able to upload it to the GIS that then is collected, and it creates a much simpler, smoother output so that you know, he has it right there, and that's one of the big asks.
So we
that-
start with the number from IT and then layer on the amounts that are needed specific to the department from department requests.
Yeah.
So again, but that number can fluctuate every year based on the number of computers that IT has said have now aged out and we need to replace.
Because I was thinking, the reason why I asked that question, yesterday at IT, they said they did subscriptions for software. That's
So
what I was
each
thinking,
computer,
but I
so
forgot the
each computer has a subscription for basically the life of that computer. So you're buying the well, let me rephrase that. You're buying the ability to have that software on that computer the year that you're buying the computer. They may have some recurring costs that they cover in IT, but the actual purchase and the brand-new purchase of the license associated with the new computer gets charged to the department at the point in time that the department is buying that new computer. And so IT sends to every department, and then finance also gets a copy of every department, and we make sure that enough money has been placed in the budget to cover what IT is requesting to be purchased. And then we look to see what additional things that they need.
We'll move down to roads. If,
Okay.
everybody can do that.
On the roads side of things, there is, phone lines are gone up. It appears that we have been under budgeting that number, so our current run rate is closer to the $11,000 number because we spent $10,000 in 2024 versus the $6,000 that we budgeted in 2025. As we talked about, ESG lease has been eliminated, so that is a purposeful zero. With some new people in positions, we are looking to send some additional people to some conferences. Thus, their meetings and seminars, hotel fees, and meals have increased. I mean, it's a significant percentage increase, but it's about $1,000 per line, so it's not a significant dollar. It's just, if you go by percentage, it's a significant percentage increase. On the road side of things, with new management looking at the roads, the decision was made that slurry seal is not a method of maintaining our roads that we want to continue to do. That is why that line item has been eliminated for fiscal '26. It is not an effective method of maintaining our roads, and as such, that number has been eliminated. Additionally, we've added then some additional money into blacktop for them for that. On the heavy equipment side of things, we're looking at buying 2 flatbed trucks and a gap vac, and I couldn't tell you what a gap vac is, but maybe somebody to my left could, but I can't tell you what that means if you have any further questions. But those 3 pieces of equipment is what makes up the $1 million under heavy equipment, and then the leases are just continuing leases.
Blacktop didn't seem to go up that much. It only went up about $250,000, but then there's a maintenance surface treatment that went up or actually it went down 750,000, so I'm not quite sure when you eliminated the slurry seal, where that was,
So we have not been spending the slurry seal.
okay.
And so we really took a hard look at the amounts we've actually been spending on our roads.
Blacktop went up about 250.
Yeah, we looked at what we've actually been spending and streamlined the budget to what we feel we can actually spend and actually utilize in a fiscal year. And that is what these numbers represent.
Okay. What's, either director or anybody, what is the roads consultant services? See, what my thing is that we've managed to really come a long way with roads and with public works as a whole, where the budgeting used to be in the dirt, and now it's millions of dollars. We're actually making huge investments in salaries, operations, capital investments, a lot of money. So I'm hoping that the consultant expenses, and I think you've been working on doing this, we're reducing our consultant fees and our contractual services. So I was wondering, with the roads consultant services here having been, it's a little confusing. The 2025 revised was $450,000, and the projection is now $104,000. And 26, we're asking $65,000 for contractual services. I guess it comes and goes as it is, but I'm just hoping that we are reducing our contractual services.
So in fiscal '25, we did a special contract for an evaluation of our roads, and that is why there was a significant increase to that dollar amount for fiscal '25. And so we will not need to do that same reevaluation. We have paid for it, contracted for it, and that is ongoing.
That's correct. If I can just add to that, so that study will be paid for in full out of the FY25 budget, and that typically will last for 5 years, that information. From that study, we will gauge what our priorities are in terms of road rehab and what the pavement solution is. That item that Pam mentioned a few moments ago about slurry seal, that's certainly for 26. We don't anticipate using that at all, and maybe not even for 27. We're not taking it off the table forever, because there is a time and a condition of a road where that would be the right solution. But going forward, since the new director has come on, we have taken a hard look at every opportunity we can get to do work in-house ourselves, whether it be physical trade work or consulting.
Also for evaluation, if you remember, there is a state option for that equipment. You can also just...
So during that 5-year time, and we've already asked the vendor that's doing the road study more about the technology. During that 5-year time, it's our desire to get very, very acquainted with that technology and the way that system operates to perhaps do it the next time ourselves.
Which is good, and I appreciate you saying that, Michael. I had said contractual services. I actually meant in fund number 520100, you have contractual services for 60, but then there's a road consultant services, which is another 65, and it's every year. This has been paid every year. So I'll leave it up to you guys. I don't need an answer today, but again, as I said before, I'm hoping there is an earnest effort to reduce the contractual and the services and all that, now that we seem to be up to full speed with.
And the one I was talking about was specifically the roads consultant services.
Yeah, I get it, I appreciate it, yeah.
And so that's the one that shot way up in '25, and we don't expect to need to do that same number in '26.
Understood. And then the only other thing I had was you had building improvements, capital costs, $550,000.
No, that's under capital other. I cannot remember what that is.
Capital other, I'm sorry.
The 550.
Okay, this is...
That is for the overhaul of the upper ferry.
Okay, all right.
It's on the 3-year cycle of starting, so we basically get a year off. We have to do one, overhaul it, and then do the next one. We get a year off because they're on a 3-year cycle, basically. So that's the ferry. I forgot what that was.
Spent $550,000 to overhaul the ferry?
That's an estimate, but based on where we've been most recently, that's just a slight escalation from what it was last time.
All right, okay.
Also, there's a GPS item here within the budget, and right now, roads has leased 25 vehicles, and we are just working on this to have an optimal solution. If we can reduce some numbers, maybe one or two, and that item will just help us to achieve that target for the time being.
How's your staffing right now?
I believe we've got 3 or 4 vacancies in roads, and on a regular basis, we receive applications in through HR, they pass them along, and on a fairly regular basis, at least once or twice a month, we conduct interviews for those.
Do you have, I know you did hire seasonal people to do mowing along the roads. Do you still do that, or?
We do. We
Because
have,
I'm starting to get some complaints on the east side a little bit about grass being too high.
I mean, if you have something specific, I'd be happy to take it down, make sure it gets attended to.
Yeah, well. I
So we
mean,
do
I've just
put a
had
we do have a part-time budget available to us to try to hire some of those positions that they're harder to hire, but we attempt.
Yeah, well, I just,
We're just getting into that season now, but we
Yeah.
should have that under control
yeah,
in the
that's
next
fine.
week or so.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Moving to solid waste,
Are we in solid waste now?
yeah. This is the last
Yep.
portion here. I think the biggest concern right now is the rate increases that you're asking to 88 a ton, I guess July 1st, and $100 a ton in January
So
2026.
if I can give you a little bit of background, so we approached council last year to do $100. That got back down to the current rate that had been, or the previous rate of $67 for the first 6 months, and then up to 78 in January.
Right.
We're asking for a two-step process again this year, 88 and 100. By the tonnage that we took in during those periods of time, the solid waste division through April 30th lost $4 million. We did not collect an additional $4 million in revenue. That $4 million could have been put in the bank, and so for next year, fiscal '26, we could borrow $4 million less. At current interest rates, and depending on where interest rates go, that would save us $2.5 million to $4.4 million in interest costs alone over 20 years by having that revenue in our bank and not having to borrow that $4 million. So we believe we are still getting outside Wicomico County trash because we still are one of the cheapest on the shore. It has not made a significant impact. Actually, our numbers are still, our tonnage is still staying relatively flat, if not increasing year over year. Additionally, we held a public hearing in March where the haulers were present, and we spoke about the fact that rate increases were going to have to happen. We also, we put out a 5-year plan that talked about those rate increases as well. We are required by law to set aside in cash every dollar that we need to close a facility and maintain that facility for years afterwards. And if we are borrowing funds to build the next cell, we're using interest that we could be setting aside for the next cell, and we're paying interest that we shouldn't be paying. If we continue down the path, Joe has asked me in the past, when will this become a governmental fund? I hope never. If we make these rates to be a business rate, if we charge the rates that it costs us to run this business, we have to think about the fact that this is being treated like a business, not a government subsidy. It is a business that we have to run, that we have to maintain, that we have to meet regulations. And if we don't maintain it like a business, it could, I'm not predicting that in any near future, but it could go down that path where the taxpayers are now paying for the public haulers to make a profit.
Well, I don't know, Mr. Spavey, I don't know. Worcester's about $80, Somerset's 80, Sussex is 75. So
Somerset's 75.
75, I'm sorry. So as a business and trying to operate like a business, we have to recognize who the competition is and what they're charging. So I guess I'd have to ask, with these numbers, these are astronomical, they're large increases.
There's also, just for everybody's edification, there's also a balancing act between, we don't want to be the most expensive, right? I'm guessing. We want to be fair and in the range. We also don't want to be the most inviting. Secondly, there's a lot of credence in what Pam just said about how we have certain expenses that, just by another day of the calendar going by, we've got to put more money aside for the reserve in aging of those cells, and we've also got to put more money aside because we have to expand. And that's really something facing everybody. I don't know where all those other places are in that plan, but frankly, we're a bit behind. We're just a bit behind on doing that. Am I right?
We're behind. We do not have the reserve set aside to be, so the fact, since I've been in this role, we have borrowed money twice. We're looking at borrow money again for solid waste. We should never borrow for solid waste because you're paying for 20 years for a cell that you might have filled up in 7. So now we're paying interest for another 13 years on something that we can't put another piece of trash in. You should be paying for the cell out of your savings account in this business. Now, are we more expensive than could we become more expensive than the other ones? Yes, we could. But we also are taking the largest volume of trash versus Somerset County, versus Worcester County. And as such, we are having to expand at a faster clip than either one of those facilities.
Yeah, I understand that. We are the largest county, 110,000 people. Dorchester is half our size, and they're close, they're under us. So I understand we've got the increase. I don't know if increasing it, 16% in a year is probably the best thing.
So again,
How
I'm
much is
just,
it?
26%.
26%.
so again, I'm looking at it as the accountant and going, $4 million. Next year, we're looking at borrowing $13 million. We could have not borrowed $13 million.
We do get that.
I get
Well,
that.
but
As Fabi said, it's a very fine balance. You have to be very careful
Yeah.
that you don't lose your business as well. And that's simply what.
Well, honestly,
Well,
if we lose our business, wonderful. It means we don't have to build the cells as quickly.
So wait a minute. I like history, okay? And I pay attention. Ocean City took their trash away from Worcester County. It sent them into a tailspin where they had to pretty much fully fund out of their general fund their landfill. If we keep raising, and I understand the balancing act, okay, and I understand, but if we keep raising these fees, your largest hauler, and we know who that is, could do the same thing that Ocean City did. And you know what that would mean? And you were saying, well, that would be great. That
It would
would not
mean
be great.
we would not have to expand as quickly as we're currently expanding.
Okay, all right. The other thing, I know this budget's been submitted and it's not been approved. And we know what happened the last time you tried to raise these fees. You never contacted the municipalities or the private haulers. Has that been?
That's been done.
It has, and if you don't mind, Pam, I'll just give a brief synopsis on that. So we've made a conscious effort for public outreach. We had not a public hearing, but a public workshop in fall and in spring that involved invitations to the commercial haulers, and in both cases they were attended. We've also begun a series of biannual meetings specifically with the commercial haulers so that we can not only discuss our costs and with the direction the fees are headed in, but also just hear from them about what their concerns are about the landfill. So without a doubt, there's been 3 times we've sat down with the commercial haulers at this point.
What's their opinion of raising this rate? Have they give you an opinion of that?
There's one in particular that continues to say that it appears to be more inviting to come to the landfill to dump your trash than to have it collected commercially. So they think we should make that on par with what a commercial collection is. Our goal is to maintain a solvent, compliant landfill, and that's how we tailor our numbers.
So sorry. So
I think, oh, sorry.
we have the recent survey, and within the last 9 months, we filled 231,000 cubic yard of our landfill. So if we annualize it, it will be about 320,000 cubic yards, and it will be about roughly 165 to 170,000 tons annually. So which means there is again an increase with regards to 2024. And also, we are think on a per my estimation or guess, $100 million facility, and its depreciation is just $4 million per year. So right now, for the last 2 weeks, we are dealing with a leachate liner failure, and to manage that emergency situation, we had to hold 24/7, and we hold about 1 million gallons of leachate to the Salisbury facility. So there is also an aging infrastructure problem, and also just by reviewing the total annual tonnages and the volume that we are receiving, I think I can easily say that our price seems low with regards to these facts, I mean.
The other, I want to point out one other thing. So on the expense side, we are required to provide a balanced budget. On the expense side, you will see that we have an estimated contribution of $1.3 million, $1.4 million to the fund balance. If we lower those rates, we are now significantly, we are now actually using our fund balance to make our budget balance and still borrowing money.
We recognize that. We have the same issues with the Civic Center. We have the same issues with the airport. I get it. I understand. Jeff?
So this amount, I don't have a calculation with me, but I could calculate for you what the rate would be if we wanted to do, if you wanted a break even with no contribution to fund balance. But keeping it at $78 means that we're going to have to use fund balance to balance our budget.
Let
me jump in with-
Let me get Jeff to,
Oh, sorry.
you can, but I want to let Jeff ask you. We're
Who would
way
have
over
thought
time,
trash
guys.
was such a
We're out of
passionate
time.
topic?
Dirty.
You don't realize that it's a construction project and there's all kinds of projects going on. We have the Hall Road, the leachate problem. EA comes out and they do our surveys for us. There's a lot that goes into a landfill that I didn't even know, and I started 2 years ago. So there is a lot that goes into it.
So I don't want to belabor any of these points. I remember back during one of the work sessions, we were told that in order to break even with this, we need to be $88 a ton. Is that right? And we're $10 less than that. So from a business perspective, instead of trying to figure out how we can get more money, I would ask, how can we become more efficient and manage our expenses to get down to the 78 level? Wait a minute.
Okay?
I'm not done. I've talked with 2 commercial haulers in the past 4 days. They both said the same thing. They appreciate the meetings, but nothing was discussed about the tipping fee. I don't know if that's true or not because I wasn't in the meeting. So I'm just letting you know what I was told. But from a business perspective, a 13% increase in July and another 13% increase 6 months after that, that's going to present a problem to not only their business model, but the municipalities that they've already signed contracts with. They've got a percentage of their clientele on low and fixed income. They're barely able to pay for their trash hauling now. What's it going to be like when it becomes unaffordable?
So
What's going to happen, and believe me, I'm on the end result of picking up litter around this county. I see where it is. I see how much it is. We are hearing about the removal of the recycling stations. We're out there every 2 weeks picking up trash. Raising this tipping fee is not going to have a good result. We need to figure out a better way to get where we need to go.
So actually, we are just working on increasing the revenue, especially the gas revenue, and maybe it can add up to $1 million per year. So that's part of the solution.
Heather, you had a
But
Pam,
Go ahead.
just have Heather.
Go ahead,
Oh.
Heather.
So the big thing, you had mentioned litter, and I think that's one thing that I'm going to hit on while we're just talking about all these percentages, because I've done a lot of math. I've worked with the engineers there. If we don't raise this, then we don't build Cell 7. We don't build an expansion. You're going to get a lot more litter. You're not going to have anywhere to put
Anywhere
it
to
then.
take it, yeah.
So you said about an increase of how much percentage?
I think it's 26%, yeah.
13 in July and another 13 in January.
I'll let Jessica chime in, but the math that we coordinated today, our increase from last year in tonnage was 28%. 28% increase in
These
our
are the yearly
tonnage.
totals.
When we talked, or the last time we went through this, you said you were going to check and see what it costs to off-haul trash. In other words, like what Ocean City does. I never got that information.
We don't have work like that ready for you today, but we know what the options are. We could clearly identify that pretty
Yeah.
straightforward.
So the facility that we have and some of the stuff the equipment that we have to operate the facility, it is aging. So in this budget, we have $1.7 million to buy new equipment because we need new equipment that is not falling apart on the hill and then sitting there. So without additional revenue to operate this facility, you are either looking at the option of taking it elsewhere and not having a solid waste facility in Wicomico County, or continuing to invest in what we have. So,
We invest in education. I might be sorry I'm even saying this, but we invest in education. People invest in education that don't have kids. I wouldn't like the idea of us using the general fund to prop up the landfill either. What gets me is I don't understand what the big downturn is, and it's got to be somewhere in the management situation part of it, because in 2008, this county was borrowing money from the landfill because there was such a surplus. We borrowed money from the landfill to prop up our budget. So somewhere between then and now, we've it's flipped.
the regulations to maintain a facility, the growth in the amount that we're putting in that facility, some of these other locations, I believe, I could be wrong in this, but I believe they actually look at what trash is coming in, and if it's doesn't have an address for Worcester County or Somerset County, it gets turned away. And where do you think they come? They come to Salisbury to dump their trash. So, yeah, they're able to maintain their rates at what they're doing because they're not getting all of the trash potentially, because maybe a truck from a commercial hauler did a route that went in from Wicomico County into Worcester County and back into Wicomico County and now dumps for us. So some of that Worcester County trash is now in Wicomico County's landfill, and we are the place to take it.
James,
We
you
need
had a last comment?
legislation to outlaw trash from other places?
Well, but we would also then need money to actually monitor that. And we don't have those funds to monitor, to actually physically go through and find somebody. So we would literally have to take a truck, pull it to the side, look through their haul and say, you got Worcester County stuff in here, you can't take it. Well, now they've got Wicomico and Worcester County, where's it gonna go? The commercial hauler is going to complain that they have to change their routes and all that kind of stuff. I believe, and I believe we actually have it on video where it was discussed what the rates are. So they have known for months. They may not like what they heard, but they were told it, or they may not have processed what they heard. So the story of last year of where we didn't do outreach, we don't believe that falls on us this year. And the fact that they've signed contracts, that is on them knowing the information that they were provided months prior.
James, we'll wrap up.
Yeah, thank you, Pam. I'm just going to go over a few things. I don't know if we charge for brush or not. But other counties locally charge for brush. I don't know if we can make up any money there.
We do,
charge
we
for-
do have a plan. We're headed in that direction.
Okay,
I think
We
we
do
discussed
charge-
that
Somerset
recently.
County, hold on, Somerset, I only have a few minutes here. Somerset County charges for brush. Dorchester County charges for brush. That could be an area that we can make up a little revenue. I don't know if anyone has ever thought of the idea of maybe privatizing the recycling end of things, because that costs us a lot of money. I don't know if we can just get a local hauler and say, look, we'll give you some personal property credits if you recycle for us. You handle all of it. Oh, I don't want to deal with it. We'll give you some personal property tax breaks or whatever on their cans or what have you, and let them handle the recycling, whack that right off of our budget and get it done and over with. And as far as the rate increases, I understand we do have to increase. If the council is not willing to increase it, maybe we can find a different number that is okay and more comfortable for the council to go with. And that's it, John.
I have,
James, and I would just say that the brush comment may not be reflective of what the entire council might suggest, so.
We do
I
charge
wouldn't
for brush.
go that
Yeah.
far, so just.
We do charge, we
We
have
do
commercial
charge.
haulers that come in, but the everyday public, it is
I was
free.
just throwing it out.
Yeah, I'm just saying that the
Yeah.
council may not be willing to do
I was
that.
just throwing it out there.
Okay,
Just-
Shane,
I
sorry.
have just a
Thank you.
comment to make. When you look at the housing that's being built, Food Line, right by Food Line on Nanticoke Road, they got tons of houses being built. Also, that's trash. Also, I look at Sassafras over there off of Queen Avenue on the west side. They're building homes, tons of homes. So and most of them have the commercial or the city trash. So, because they're in the city. So where is that trash going to go?
It's all going to our landfill, and
That's
that's
what I
the,
know.
and so
And
again,
so-
we're the most, sorry, I'm
Yeah.
interrupting you.
So I'm just saying, we have to be realistic in seeing, if you're not taking in consideration the homes that are being built, the apartment, people that have the big trash bins. Where is the trash going? So we can't really keep, just like eggs are $4 a dozen, $5 a dozen. So we can't keep the price the same. And you have to account when you're charging people to pick up the trash, especially the commercial people, they would have to pass it on to their customers if they know their fee is going. So that's how I look at it. I say, all these homes being built, where's
So-
the trash going?
And in Joe's comment about the solid waste facility becoming getting a government appropriation with a revenue cap, that will it'll make it very, very difficult to
I
afford.
was endorsing it, I just said.
But as the finance director, I don't know how we would balance that budget. When we have a commodity, which is the location to put trash in, we should charge the cost that it's costing us. It may not cost Worcester County as much as us, but we are currently the growing location for trash and the growing location for people. And as such, we have to either make the decision that we are staying in this business and expanding, or not be in this business any longer.
So if we raise it high enough, do you think people will start taking their trash to Worcester and Dorchester?
I think they may
So maybe-
look at their roots.
We can start with the rate and maybe analyze within quarters the total tonnage, because accepting 20-25% increase each year is not sustainable for us as well. So maybe we can optimize those rates after quarterly analysis or something like that.
I mean, ideally, we would use the fee structure not just to meet the profit and loss statement, for lack of a better term to use, but we also use it to control demand. I mean, if we literally just take everything that comes across the board, Wicomico County or not, and we try to grow to flex that, we'd be talking about an entirely different fee structure. So it's not a bad message to say that we control demand to some extent with price.
Thank you all very much for being here today.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it. A lot to go over. Appreciate it. Library.
Yep, you're next. So,
Mr. Director Hirschberger, how are you? If you could let the public state your name.
Yes, thank you. My name is Seth Hirschberger. I'm the library director for Wicomico Public Library.
Thank you very much.
So the budget that we put in is the budget that Public Library submitted, exclusive of the ESG lease amount that we deducted off of their number, since we don't have that any longer. So they were looking for, to be able to give about a 2.5% raise to their employees, and do some additional operational things. And as well, we have the next phase of the Ward Museum location in the capital budget for them as a pay-go project with funding in the budget. I have to find the right line item. Sorry. $866,000 as our pay-go share, a state grant in '26, and funding from the library fundraising efforts of about $1.5 million.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Director, did you have anything? You've already used 35 minutes of your time, so.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for inviting me to talk about the budget. I'm happy to answer any questions. The operational things are a lot of one-time expensive things, like we are moving from the Pittsville temporary location into the new building there in Parsonsburg, so that move is in the budget. We're also funding the utilities and maintenance at the Shoemaker Pond facility right now while it's still being renovated, so that's there in the budget. And we put some money in our furniture and equipment line to update the furniture when we move into the new location there in the Lewis R. Riley Library in Parsonsburg.
You have a lot of balls in the air, and you're doing a lot of good work, and we really do appreciate that.
Thank you.
So, did you have a question, Jeff?
State grant.
We're looking very good. It just needs the governor's signature on the bill. That would provide $3 million this year. And then we're in the process of applying for an additional $3 million for next year for that project for relocating the library.
Should we send them a pen?
I think we're good. Thank you.
Think we're good?
Yeah.
Have you established a location for the new Salisbury Library? Like you're going to have a smaller one in Salisbury?
No, we don't. That is an item that is in the CIP further out, FY29. We've requested funding, about $500,000 to renovate 6,000 to 8,000 square feet in a yet-to-be-determined commercial space downtown.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you taking
And
the
there's going to
time.
be one if you don't need the basement.
It's true.
Pam, is this one of the departments that we're supposed to be funding at a certain level?
Yes, the county is statutory obligated to match the state's allocation for the library. At a certain level, the county is well in excess of their minimum obligation with respect to that, especially.
We do have a minimum we have to.
Yes. Yes. But you do more than that. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Seth.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We righted the ship a little bit for you.
Yep, Health Department, primarily the numbers come from what we are provided by the state as to what we are obligated to fund. So they provide those numbers, we basically say, okay. We provide some there are some grant funded positions, and then there is some salary as well for I believe the health department director as well. But otherwise, most of the dollar amounts are based on information that we are provided, that the state says this is what we need. I'm also aware that we are putting money in for the Verizon building renovation for fiscal 2026. That is an estimate. We are in the process right now. Maybe you can provide an update as to where we are on the RFP process to get a plan.
Yeah, so Matthew McConaughey, Health Officer.
Thank you.
And currently, we are working with Ron from the Becker Morgan Group. We have had one facility overview, and he has toured the Hurdle and Atkins complex, and he's currently drafting the architectural designs for our move and renovation over to the Verizon building. Like Pam stated, there is a obligation of matching funds based off of what the state contributes to the health department for operations and then what the county needs to match. We do have we have one county position, a supplement for myself, and then there are two other county programs that are also supplemented as well, being mental health and our COAT team that the county provides funds for. And Brandy Wink, she's my Director of Administration.
Randy.
Yeah. On the rental agreements, this year it's 305. I guess, is that the end of their lease
We
term?
get July and August are our last two payments. So the lease agreement ends, so we could hopefully have these architectural plans sooner rather than later so that we can make a decision as to what of that we want to bid and what we're ready to bid for. Put those bids out, so hopefully soon after that lease ends, we could start our renovation process. So we could get it under contract, and obviously we would have to come back to council to award for.
Yeah, we're trying to get a list of the itemization for this. Personally, I think it's absolutely astronomical that we're asking for $2.7 million to do renovations on the building we spent about $4 million for. If we'd known that, we would have spent $7 million for a brand-new building and gotten probably a nice brand-new building. I found that very surprising. So if you can get us an itemization of that, I don't think we have it yet.
And we won't until honestly, we won't have an itemization until we have the architectural plans. Again, this is being funded out of fund balance. It is not intended to be funded out of actually, no, this one is being funded out of general obligation bond. We will not have that bond. By the time we are ready to finalize the dollar amount for the bond, we should have a better idea as to the architectural estimate, as to whether or not the $2.75 million is appropriate for that bonding.
Is the architectural studies that part of the request on the 2.7?
So, no, we had that in this fiscal year. Okay. So we've already obligated for that. That's the Becker Morgan that Matthews was talking about.
Questions, Jeff? Okay. Any comments you want to make? No?
We're just extremely appreciative of everything you do and allocate to the health department, especially when now with the federal government and a lot of budgetary cuts to health funding, it is extremely important that and extremely appreciative of everything that you do provide because we're able to sustain programs that otherwise we may not be able to. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. We appreciate it. It seems as if we finally do have everything in place with the health services as far as the permitting and the problems that always come. Nobody asks us about restaurants. They always ask us about permits, and, as you know.
Yeah.
But it seems like we're probably on track first time in maybe 10 years. I don't know.
Yeah, we're fully staffed and functioning very well.
Very good. And is the state still overriding like crazy?
It depends on what the situation is.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
That was the best answer. Thanks. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
People from volunteer.
We have one final is the volunteer fire. They're scheduled for 4. Wow, we were a half hour behind. Now we're 20 minutes ahead. Oh, good.
If I may take a 2-minute break,
Please do. Sure.
Yeah.
I will be right back.
Thank you.
Whatever you need to do.
We are now reconvened as the Wicomico County Council, an open work session for the Wicomico County budget for April 30th. And if you could, please, from my left to right, state your name and your position. John, that would be.
John Hilton, President of Wicomico County Council, County Firefighters Association.
Wait a minute.
I don't want your job,
Please.
John, sorry. No, thanks.
John Tyler, Fire Chief, Powellville Fire Company, President of Wicomico Fire Chiefs Association.
Billy White, Chief, Sharptown Fire Department, and Vice President, County Fire Chiefs Association.
Rob Frampton, Salisbury Fire Chief.
Thank you all for taking time to be here. We do appreciate that.
So, we met with these gentlemen back when we were preparing the budget, and the amounts that are listed, I can walk through what each of the amounts represents. The $55,000 represents $5,000 per department for physicals. The $198,000 under ambulance, that reflects $18,000 for per department for workers' comp.
Excuse me, if you could repeat that. Thanks.
Sorry, $18,000 for workers' comp for the volunteer fire. So each volunteer entity obtains their own workers' comp for their ambulance workers, and thus then submits for reimbursement, so they can ask for reimbursement up to $18,000 per entity. The $275,000 is, I'm looking at the wrong section, sorry, I flip-flopped them on my list. The $275,000 is a capital contribution that we are recommending to each department for them to use on capital needs within their department. I just placed it in an ambulance, they could spend it on fire as well. It is, just so you know, we budgeted that as kind of like our pay-go, so it is being taken out of fund balance since it is a capital item, not an operating type item. Additionally, the 2475, last year, each department got $223,000. This year, we're recommending $250,000 for that, or $225,000 for that line. On the EMT salary grant, we are recommending they go to $275 per location versus the $250 that they got in fiscal 2025.
Repeat that again, I'm sorry.
$250 to $275 for EMT salaries.
Okay.
On the volunteer fire side of things, the workers' comp there, that is actually the workers' comp that we, the county, pay. And thus, we had been budgeting the $220,000, and we haven't been spending anywhere close to that and so to reflect more accurately what we at the county have been paying for that, we reduced that number from 220 to 100. That is not a dollar amount that goes to the individual departments. It is literally cut a check by us to IWIF, which is our workers' comp company. The 238 contingency, that is split as two different things. There is $18,000 per department for their kind of tough books, their mobile data units. They have 3 per department. So we have budgeted basically $6,000 per unit times 3 times 11 departments. So that's what so there's $198,000 of that $238,000 is going to each department in $18,000 apiece. Then there's $30,000 for hazmat and $10,000, that's a one-time payment of $30,000, that is not per department. And there's $10,000 for fire prevention recruitment funds that they requested. The $2,332,000, that is an increase of basically close to $11,000 per department for operating. We were at 201, 250, we're going up to 212. The $40,000 is what they call their sinking fund. We just give them $40,000 per department. And the death benefit, that is something that we retain if there is, unfortunately, a death. We budget for that, and we pay that out of our budget. And then there's $42,635, which is a flat number from last year for respiratory protection. $3,008, it basically averages out to about $3,800. So that is the split per department for the volunteer, fire, and EMS.
Questions from anyone? Question I have is, why wouldn't these two contingency numbers, why wouldn't they just be put in the overall basic grant line item?
I kept them separate because the concept of them is separate, so that we recognize the one-time aspect of the hazmat and that kind of stuff, as well as the capital contribution, so it's not buried within their total dollar amount. I chose for expediency's sake to leave in a line item that we already had, which was this contingency line, instead of naming it capital other or naming it, but like the mobile data unit is not really capital, it's more of an operating thing. So again, it was for ease of the finance department having these accounts already created.
You do me a favor and give us an itemization. I know you just explained it all, but if you give us an itemization of the contingency for the ambulance and the fire.
I can easily send you the spreadsheet that I just read it off of, because it's the only way I could keep it straight myself. So I will send you a copy of this spreadsheet.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Any Jeff?
Looks like the volunteer benefits had a significant drop.
That's the, we have, the benefits on the volunteer fire is the internal workers' comp that we pay. And last year, we paid $72,000, so why budget 220 when it's not running at that level?
Right, right.
So we pay for that and so I have given us some space for growth. Hopefully they have additional recruitment. Hopefully they have more people. Hopefully, so I've given us some space for growth, but we don't need to continue to budget at $220,000 when we're only spending about 75.
Thank you.
Joe?
A couple of weeks ago, I guess there was some email exchanges, and being the chief of Salisbury's here, about $1 million payment.
I figured we were going to talk about that tomorrow when we have Salisbury Fire on that.
Oh, okay, well, I see him at the table, so I thought I would ask.
The plan's tomorrow.
Yeah, because I don't have that, I have that information for me for tomorrow.
I don't need any information other than know why it wasn't put in the budget.
So,
That's, I guess, my question.
okay, well, the short answer is we were recommending $1 million of it come out of this year's fund balance. It's on the list of things was recommended, because if you look at that list of fund balance, $1 million of it coming out of fiscal '25. And then there is some discussion that the administration and council need to have about the second $1 million.
They have what now?
Have a discussion about the second $1 million.
Yeah, I think we had said we weren't going to do any more transfers in '25. We just weren't going to do that. We've been doing.
Well, but by the
so
time,
much.
but that information came to me after we had already prepared the budget. So the budget there is $1 million estimated for fiscal '25. So we need to discuss that concept.
I think in the last couple of months, we ended up with a lot of transfers over and over and over again. And so we thought, well, let's treat it like a planned budget and apply it in a budget. So I hope that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's a conversation we can have tomorrow.
Okay.
So,
I don't think it needs to take over the volunteer.
I appreciate that.
Fire department.
so I will get you that spreadsheet
Okay, that's
on the volunteer side of things.
anything, gentlemen, you'd like to? Billy, you drove a long way to get here. You got any comments?
No, you're fine, you're fine. No, I didn't drive any further than these guys from Powellville, but no, we just ask for your support and what's been submitted. We appreciate what you've done in the past, and as you've been told numerous times by a lot of us sitting here, the price of business is considerably increasing.
The roof.
Yes. I mean, a piece of fire equipment that we bought 10 years ago is now doubled in price. We just bought 6 sets of turnout gear at home, and they're $4,000. That's just for a coat and a pair of pants. That's not including boots or helmets or gloves or Nomex. And with everything coming down with the new NFPA standards, it's going to put a strain on all of us, career or volunteer. So not sure
I'm
where
sorry.
it's going to go.
And that is one of the reasons why we have put in the emergency services budget, that new position, to kind of take a look at the model as a whole based on the SWOT and where we go from here, which we talked about yesterday.
I was at the last meeting, Farmers Association meeting, of course, the 1099s. I know it's been said that they had to go out, and then there's been some discussion about whether we're going to find out whether it has to. Have you come to any resolution on that?
So we are looking at the concept of getting a private ruling letter from the IRS associate.
It's 35 grand.
Yeah, but so.
already did that
but
last year.
I know, but that protects the county. We have, the question becomes is whether or not the county council and the county executive is willing to take the risk from an email that we did get from somebody at the IRS that says they don't need to go out. Is that sufficient to protect us, the county, and all of the volunteers that are getting that? And the first time the volunteers get audited, and the first time that they get that one of them gets audited and said, oh, by the way, you owe that.
Well, maybe you can put in a resolution and the council can vote it down.
Well, let me ask you this. You said you've got an email from the IRS. I didn't think the email came from the IRS. I thought it came maybe through one of our congressmen or two of our congressmen.
It is originally written by a member, an employee of the IRS.
I think based on what other counties are doing, I'm not inclined to want to spend 35 grand on something that we've gotten certification from on a senator, a U.S. senator, and a U.S. congressman who have both said it's okay. I don't think the IRS is going to really walk off.
Well, I would like council to
Put it in writing?
put it in writing to protect the finance director from the first time that someone says, oh, by the way, you should have given a 1099, because the finance director at this moment still is uncomfortable based on historical dealings with the IRS.
That was my statement at this meeting John, I'm going to protect these guys, women and men, that are getting this benefit. And 5 years from now, they get that nasty little letter, hey, you need an audit. And I don't know whether the $35,000 is maybe to have a consensus among all the firemen's association, whether they want
So again,
the council to go along with what the council's thinking, or want to go along with what Pam's thinking. Do you want to take the risk, or you don't want to take the risk?
Well, speaking from the Firefighters Association side, from the meetings that we've had over the past couple of years, we would probably be, safe to say they're going to be comfortable with what the county's saying.
Which part of the county?
That we'll just not do the 35,000. Because every other county, no one's getting audited, and the state, we're not even getting audited over the
wait a minute, John.
$7,000.
No, I'm not talking about your fire departments. I'm talking about you all individually.
I am too, and I'm going to the $7,000 tax credit we get every year. We don't get it audited by the IRS over that.
LoSAP.
The LoSAP. So if we're not getting it audited over that, since it's been out, the likability to see the couple $100 of property tax credit.
I believe the LoSAP, though, is only offered on your state taxes. So it is not, so again, you're not going to get audited by the federal government on something that you're not getting a tax credit for on the federal government. This is a tax credit that you would be getting that is reducing your tax cost. So again, I will, if council wants to put it in writing that they are not interested in a private ruling letter, I will put it in a file that we will keep perpetually with this information when we offer these credits. But I can't swear that an individual within the fire department is not going to get selected, not because they're a fireman, but they're not going to get selected as an auditee in the state by the federal government for the IRS. I can,
Are you
and
okay with that?
Aren't we the only county in the state that's giving out 1099s for these tax credits?
but I believe we're also one of the larger credits, and I also believe that we are, again, I am pointing to, the piece that I am pointing to is actually written in the IRS code.
Are we okay with the letter? Are you okay with the letter?
I don't think we need to get the letter.
No, he's saying a letter to me.
Oh, to you?
Yes.
Yes.
Not the 32, I'm talking the letter to Pam.
Oh, yes.
Shani, you okay with that?
So I think we should have a letter. If we do a letter, I think it should also have the county executive's name on it.
No, I don't want to get into all that. I know we have, with our letter, we will attach a letter from from Congressman Harris's office and from Senator Cardin's office. We'll attach that to our letter.
Well, I think it would have more legs with the county executive's name on it.
No, because they don't want, I'm suggesting that we're probably, it's more beneficial for us to be the fall guy. I don't mind. I don't think
Okay.
it's here nor there. We can also, at the time, put in.
I wanted her to catch as much grief if we did, if we got.
And I will go back to the next association meeting and double check with them,
Do that, John.
which
Yeah.
will be at
Take a
partial.
vote, whatever you
I'll
need to
take a
do.
vote with the membership at the next meeting.
I can put in a request to the White House for an executive order if you. Eli would.
Oh, Lord.
You might.
Any other questions?
I just think this needs to be settled at some point in time. We've batted it back and forth a long time,
Anything else?
I guess.
Gentlemen? Yes.
In there, Pam, I think you covered it, but the hand-heavy software,
That is being covered, so that is not listed in this budget because it's going to be covered by the opioid money, and thus, that will come from the health department, and thus, I did not budget that. But yes, you are getting that money again. So, yes, it was a request by you. It will be funded, but it'll be funded out of opioid money that is managed by the health department and not managed by us and managed through this budget.
To ask.
Is that money we get every year?
It is money that is kind of like the cigarette settlements that have happened over time. There is continual money now. At some point in time, could these funds dry up? Yes. Those funds have not dried up yet, and we are still continuing to get settlements that then go to the opioid totals. So based on discussions with the health officer, we believe this is still something that can be funded out of the requirements associated with that, and thus we will continue to pay for it while we continue to have those funds.
Thank you.
And I hope next year that what we'll be discussing for the next year's budget will be something related to the trouble we went through with the SWOT analysis and how we want to resolve our issues as far as, I guess you could say EMS within Wicomico County and how we might address it. There's two schools of thought as to whether or not it'll be affordable or not. But again, I think, the city of Salisbury certainly needs the burden taken off their back because they're running all over the county. And I know that the citizens of, so even whether you're reimbursed or not, Chief, the citizens of Salisbury would probably like them to focus on the city of Salisbury, and I in turn would love to see us focusing on the county and investing in the county.
Well, in turn, we're also responding all over the county too. We're coming to help the city just as much as or almost as much as they're coming out to help us. I mean, we all have mutual aid agreements. I watched part of the council meeting the other night when the chief and the mayor were here, and they were talking about going to West Side. Well, there was 8 other departments that went to West Side that night.
Right.
So, I mean, it's an ongoing thing. I mean, yesterday there was, 10 companies to Delmar, 8 or 10? So, I mean, it's just,
Yeah, I wasn't saying that, and I wasn't saying that, suggesting that they were taking the workload that we weren't doing our
they
job.
Yeah.
I was just saying, I think we need to invest more in our structure in Wicomico County, and I think it could be a real plus.
No doubt, they're running a substantial amount of the calls that are being run in the county. There's no two ways about that, so.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we're all trying to help each other wherever we can, whenever we can.
I get that 100%.
Now, I did have a question, and I don't want to be out of turn. It might have been discussed prior to me getting here. Pam.
Can you move that mic closer to you to make
Yes,
sure
I'm
that they
sorry.
get it on?
Pam mentioned something about the new position that's in the budget this year.
Yes.
And I was just curious, I've had some questions from some folks on our side, what that's going to entail.
So that position is intended to look at the structure within Wicomico County and take a look at also the SWOT analysis and make recommendations as to how to take us forward on EMS and fire within the county. Can I say what exactly, but we need one person to manage that moving forward, and as such, that is the position that we are recommending to do that, because we don't have somebody currently who has the availability in their workload to be able to tackle this project and move forward in the best way for the county residents and the county fire services and the city fire services to make this work for our county residents.
It's going to be an interesting job description to advertise for.
Well, I thought that's what the SWOT analysis was for, but
Well, but now you actually have to implement it, and
I
so
understand all that.
without having somebody who manages that implementation, there is nothing, there's no way to move forward.
Okay.
I made a note of that. Is that in emergency services? Where is it, Pam?
That's in emergency services. We talked about that yesterday
Yeah, I
with
was
Lorenzo.
We didn't go into that much detail about that yesterday, though.
So
But
he
related
mentioned that same concept as to what it would be for, and we said we would also provide you show you the
Job description.
job description and the organizational chart that you asked to see associated with emergency services as to how that would roll up structure-wise.
What is the title again?
Give me a second. It's in here. I closed my book, so it is.
EMS.
Head of emergency service? No, of course not.
It's Chief EMS Division. It's on the second page of Exhibit E.
It's the third or fourth one down on 31.
Second, or third one down.
You know, Pam, last year when they hired the assistant, the assistant under Bunky, what's the title?
Assistant Director of Administration.
I thought that was going to be part of that job description. And I understand you're trying to hire somebody now for that job. That's what I got to say about that right now.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And also under, President Ken, I did want to say under the mobile data terminals, that $18,000, the committee also, some of this committee met with Department of Emergency Services and the chief backstage vendor, and we are pretty sure that our original quote through a county mobile data terminal was going to be about $5,000 per unit. With this same amount of money going with that outside vendor, meshing into the current CAD and 911 services, realistically, we will probably be able to just about upfit every one of our units with the same amount of money. And the good part about that was the county IT was exceptionally happy that, just like with the current CAD, the outside vendor maintains that. So it's not one more thing on their plate, but it is a huge help for them and us. Cuts down on radio traffic, allows to know where units are returning from the hospitals, different, things that we can do, to help out with that, so.
It kind of improves logistics a little bit.
I'm sorry?
It
Yes.
improves logistics, yeah. Good. Good. All right, anything else, gentlemen? No? No. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
As
Thank you all.
always, we appreciate everything you do, always.
Yeah.
Excellent. And we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?